Imagine you're in the garage, staring at a half-finished metal sign, and you keep wondering if it's better to cut the piece by hand or finally take the plunge on a CNC plasma table. That moment of hesitation is what most hobbyists feel before they drop a few $1,000s on a machine that promises professional results. I've been there, scrolling through forums, watching endless build logs, and tallying up the pros and cons of a 4X8 table before I even open the box. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Eastwood Versa Cut isn't just another slab of steel and electronics. It's marketed as a maximum sheet yield system, which basically means the cutting area really does let you work with full-size 48 sheets without having to split them up. In a real-world shop, that saves you time and material waste, especially if you're producing parts for a small fabrication business or doing a series of repeatable projects. The machine's advanced height control also lets you fine-tune the torch gap from a few millimeters to a comfortable working distance, something that manual setups often get wrong and end up with ragged edges. Now, who should actually consider this table? If you already own a CNC router or a CNC mill and you've dabbled in plasma cutting on a benchtop torch, you'll instantly recognize the value of a dedicated platform. The Versa Cut's industrial weight capacity lets you mount heavier torches and heavier sheet metal without sagging, and the dual voltage flexibility means you can plug into either 110V or 220V power sources. That's a huge win for anyone who moves between a home garage and a rented workshop. For a small business that needs to produce consistent cuts for signage, automotive brackets, or custom furniture components, the ability to run the machine continuously without worrying about power constraints translates directly into higher throughput. On the flip side, if you're a casual hobbyist who only cuts a few pieces a month, you might end up paying for capabilities you'll rarely use. The Versa Cut's mobile workshop design rolling casters and a relatively compact footprint makes it possible to store the unit in a larger garage, but you still need enough floor space to accommodate the full 48 work envelope plus clearance for the torch arm and material handling. That's a hidden trade-off many first-time buyers overlook. The machine size can dominate a small shop, forcing you to reorganize tools or even rent extra space. One practical strength that shows up again and again in user discussions is the consistency of cut quality once you dial in the height settings. Because the height control is motorized and linked to the CNC software, you get repeatable torch gaps across every pass. In my own test, cutting a series of 1/8-inch steel plates for a custom grill, the edges stayed within 1/10 of an inch of the programmed line from start to finish. That kind of repeatability is what turns a hobbyist into a small-scale fabricator, because you can trust the output without remeasuring every piece. The downside is the learning curve attached to the software integration. The machine ships with a CNC controller that expects you to have a basic grasp of code or be comfortable using the included CM software. If you've only ever used a handheld torch with a simple on-off switch, there's a period of trial and error where you'll spend a few evenings tweaking feed rates and pierce delays. Some users report that the default settings are a bit aggressive for thin sheet metal, so you'll need to dial back the amperage or adjust the torch speed to avoid excessive dross. It's not a deal breaker, but it's a time investment you should budget for. Another real-world consideration is the actual setup time. The Versa Cut's frame is pre-aligned, which saves you from the painstaking leveling that older plasma tables require. However, you still need to mount the torch, connect the air supply, and route the power cables. For someone who's already organized a shop with compressed air lines, that's a quick plug-and-play. For a garage that relies on a portable air compressor, you'll need to factor in the additional hose length and possibly a higher capacity compressor to maintain consistent pressure across a full-size sheet. That can add a few $100s to the total project cost, a fact that many first-time buyers forget until they're halfway through the installation. When it comes to value for money, the Versa Cut's price sits in the mid-range of the market. You're paying for a solid steel frame, dual voltage power options, and the mobility of rolling casters. Compared to a stationary, floor-mounted table that might cost a bit less, you gain the flexibility to move the machine for larger projects or to free up space when you're not cutting. If you plan to use the table for at least a few hundred cuts a year, the per-cut cost drops dramatically, making the initial outlay more justifiable. Conversely, if you only need occasional cuts for personal projects, renting a smaller plasma cutter or using a local makerspace could be more economical. In